Hello, everyone. In this lesson, we're going to talk about what is measurement plan, the foundation of it. It's your roadmap for smarter e-commerce analytics. So let's get started. Now, what's a measurement plan? A measurement plan will turn your business strategy into a measurable data. Let's say that you work in a company, it's an e-commerce company, and their goal is to expand to the German market. And they say, hey, we need to increase our revenue from the German market by 30%. You need to be, as a digital analyst, able to translate this business objective into a measurable data from purchases based on the geographic location of the users. So, in other words, it will tell you what to track, how to track it, and why it matters. Why do you need to track how many users are actually viewing the product? Why do you need to track how many users are actually adding a product to the cart? And why do you need, if they are in Germany, to know if they're in Germany or they're in another country? So this is really important. This is what measurement plan should answer. And I can summarize it in four main points. When it comes to the business goals, is what you are trying to achieve. You have to know why you are tracking this. What do you want to achieve after that? The goal is, for example, increase the completed purchase by 20% this quarter. Then you're developing a new feature. You have to make sure that that measurement plan translate that this feature will have an impact on growing the purchase by 20%. The reason number two is KPIs and metrics. How do you measure the success? Let's say that we want to increase the purchase by 20% in the previous example. What do you want to measure and how do you want to measure that success? Let's say that in this case, you need to say like, oh, okay, if we want to increase the completed purchase by 20%, we need to have a closer eye on the conversion rate. What's the conversion rate? Conversion rate is the number of purchases to the total sessions. Do I track them? Do I have them? The reason number three is what are the events to track? As you know, in online, it's really complicated journey, and there are many, many steps goes in between till you reach the final step that will generate the revenue to the business. In our case, what users' actions do we need to capture? Do we track the view items? Do you track how many users are actually viewing that product? Do we track the number of users adding that item to cart? Do we track the purchase at the end? Of course, are we getting a success users purchasing the products that they added to their cart? Those events will help you to understand the customer journey. And by understanding this, you will know, are you close to reach the 20% growth into revenue by this quarter or not? The fourth reason is reporting strategy. And this is from a personal experience. Many times you have the data, you have all the information, but you will end up with stakeholders coming to you and saying, hey, you know what? What was the performance last quarter? What did we do last year comparing to this year, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to know what's your strategy for reporting. Do you need to push them to your stakeholders in this case? I'm talking about the business stakeholders. Do you need the business stakeholders to go to the GA4 purchase performance reporting, or you need to create something more custom on Looker Studio by adding different data sources from GA4, from the marketing channels, from your CRM system, let's say Salesforce, et cetera, or you want to push them to the funnel exploration. So you need to know what's your strategy, because the last that you need to avoid is when users come to you and says, hey, you know what? I don't know if we have data for this. So how's my feature is performing? This is what you need to avoid. And that's why we need to have the measurement plan, because the measurement plan will have all these pillars available. The second point is like, why do we need a plan? Why plan is important? Is it a fancy thing that we need to do, or it's something really important? Of course, it's something really important because many e-commerce websites collect a lot of data, you know, and sometimes not the right data. Sometimes they collect, for example, the scrolling down, and without understanding why do they collect the scrolling down, you know, without a plan, tracking everything or tracking some of the things will ensure that these things are not aligned. The KPIs in this case are not clear because, as I said before, some people will say like, oh, you know what, we have, I don't know, 75% of scrolling down really high on the homepage. But does that translate into our final goal of increasing the revenue by 20% this quarter? you know Even when you want to build a report, They will tell like, oh, you know what? Can you add the scrolling down? Can you add the play video event as well? And can you add the number of users actually engaging with our chatbot? So these stuff sometimes will mislead than actually clarifying what's going on. But a solid measurement plan will fix that thing. And there are four reasons why do we need a plan. The first reason is to align business and technical teams. You have the business analyst, he says like, oh, okay, I think that this feature will increase our revenue by 10%, and this will contribute to the overall 20% business revenue. You need to align the business stakeholders to the technical people, which is the developers in this case. And this is your job as a data analyst. You need to be in between to say, okay, we need to track this because you need to achieve the 20% growth in revenue. And we need to tell the developers why do we need it and what do we need. In the next lessons, you will see how do you define this. The second reason is to track what actually matters. Sometimes, someone will come to you and say, hey, you know what, we have this new feature of, I don't know, like having a video for every product that we have, and we need to track how many users are engaging with the chatbot. It's important for us to know. Then you have to challenge these kind of decisions. Do we really need this or not? Because your job in the plan is to make it as concrete as possible so everybody is aligned. The third reason is support smarter decisions. Of course, clean structured data equals to better insights. In this case, you are not making lots of noise data where people are getting lost and confused. You say the goal is to increase the purchase by 20% this quarter. We have the following events. We have the following interactions: add to cart, checkout, page, the product view, item view, and the purchase. When things are concrete, then it's easier to be understood by the business owners, and it's easier as well to optimize. This is really important. Yeah, and that's right. Enables testing and optimization. You can't improve what you don't measure. Let's say that you you have like you want to track the growth into the purchase by 20% in the German market, but at the same time, for some reasons, you don't know the geographic diversity into the users purchasing the items. So without knowing what you're tracking, you can't optimize. You can't come up with an A/B testings. Oh, we can have a real life example. As this course is mainly about view items, about the e-commerce, it's really important to understand the journey. So in our case, let's say that it's an e-commerce website. You need to know what are the steps that will actually ended up to the actual event that will generate the revenue to the business. And there's many steps. This is really simplifying way of doing it. But of course, the the more the website is complicated, the more the steps will be, the more the smaller steps will be. But for this course, we're going really simple on the foundation. It's for e-commerce measurement plan. So you need to understand what's the journey. In our case, we have an e-commerce. We need to know that, okay, we have a view item, add to cart, begin a checkout, and then purchase. You need a clear event name. And there's a specific and standard naming convention by GA4. We will go through this in the next lessons, and where these events will happen. You need to define this so everybody knows what are we tracking and where are we tracking it. The event item, for example, when you see when you go to the view item, it will happen only when the product page is viewed. So when the person clicks on the product and they view the full page with the description with all the details about it. The second event, for example, is the add to cart. You track this one when the user click on the button add to cart. And the third event, in our case, would be the purchase, is when the event is actually succeed and the user purchased and ended up into the thank you page. Some common mistakes, I noticed that sometimes the business stakeholders will just come to you and say, we need to track everything. Or, we need to track nothing, because at the end we need just the purchase. So we have the page views, we have the purchase. This month we have 30% increase in purchase on GA4, but the month after they have a decline in like 20%, and nobody knows why. Is it like an error happened on the website that decreased the purchase? Is it the add to cart functionality not working as it's supposed to? So many reasons. But when you know each step and what's going on each step, you can debug easier. You can understand better what's going on. Now, why it matters, measurement plan matters because it can transform random tracking into intentional data that powers growth. So you are not just randomly tracking everything, you actually purposely tracking the thing that will make an impact after all. And that's why, again, it's a recap. That's why you need a measurement plan to align teams together, to track what matters, to drive better decisions, and to enable optimization. As I said, when you don't track anything, you can't optimize. So you cannot come up with an idea of, oh, let's do an A/B test, adding videos to the product, so users can view how the uh, product can be used. What are the sizes, how it can use, etc., etc. And almost the last point that I have, it's really important. What are the common mistakes without a plan? I noticed many business owners, they launch their product, they go with their website without actually measuring what should be measured. And with that being said, I noticed that sometimes they will just track everything, you know so as I said, they track the how many users are interacting with the chatbot, how many users are playing the video, how many users are scrolling down, scrolling up. Why do we need this in the first place? Inconsistent data sometimes as well. So different teams will use different tracking steps. Let's say that the marketing team will use the meta tracking event. So they will say, oh, you know what, we noticed that we generated 40% in purchase revenue, and this is from our meta, so we're doing great job. At the same time, you have the business owners, they look at Salesforce and they say, oh no, we didn't generate 40%, we actually generated 21%, and we are short by 9%. So you can see that without a measurement plan, everybody is tracking based on their understanding. So you need the measurement plan to align everybody on what's going on. And another mistake that I noticed, that sometimes, like, people launch their product without tracking the concrete conversion. So, for example, he launched a new mobile app, let's say, on iOS, and then he said, "Oh, you know what? I launched the mobile app, and I track. I know how many users are actually downloading my mobile app." But does this person know how many users are actually purchasing, opening that app, purchasing on the app, referring this app to someone else, etc., etc.? That's are the common mistakes that happens if you don't have a concrete plan. Last point I have for today is the key takeaway. A measurement plan is the first step for smarter e-commerce tracking. It ensures every event, KPI, and report connects back to the real business goals. That's really important, everyone. You need to know that with a measurement plan, it's the first step for you to have the next best product or feature that you have. And with that, I'm done. If you have any question, please feel free to reach out to me in the comment section, or reach out to me on X, or I'm not sure if you can reach out to me on YouTube. And after this lesson, there's a quiz. It's a short quiz, 5 questions. Feel free to answer them, and I put an explanation in every question. Thank you so much, everyone, and see you in the next lesson. Bye bye.